champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here! The champ is here!
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
And good morning to you, Wilmington. Hello and welcome to Mornings with Joe Catenacci, hour number 3. Yaël Ossowski filling in here. Joe gave us a nice little sweet goodbye there in the last hour. He had to let us go for a little bit. He's got a little bit of business to take care of, and he asked me to fill in. I'm Yaël Ossowski. You might have heard me a couple times guest hosting for Joe. Also, usually a fixture here on the Freedom Fridays in the last segment to give you all the best and the latest and the greatest in consumer choice news. But we're here, occupying Joe's beautiful seat. It's the 17th of September. Another great day in Wilmington. What a place to be. I'm in downtown, if you can't tell right now, so I'm having a great time myself. We're going to go through a couple of stories throughout the rest of the hour. I know that Joe gave a nice, beautiful wrap-up. We're right at the end of the week, guys, so we're just a couple of hours away before you can hang up them keys and enjoy the weekend with your loved ones, with your friends, kick back a little bit. The weekend is starting soon, but it's Freedom Friday, everybody, so we know exactly what we got to do. Let's talk about a couple of headlines, a couple of stories here. The one big one that I saw, and this one really got me going. I definitely would have talked about it with Joe had he been here, but let's talk about Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren, well-known senator, state of Massachusetts. She has been in the Senate as a fixture. She's run for president. She's someone who has been involved now in federal agencies and the federal government for the better part of a decade. She is not too happy about cryptocurrencies, about stablecoins, about all of these alternative markets that people are using to find beautiful crypto. And there was a clip of her discussing this with the head of the SEC. And the big thing that they're talking about is what is going to be the future of regulation when it comes to cryptocurrencies. Many of you might be very familiar with things like Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of these. Some of you, maybe you've never heard of it. Maybe your grandkids have talked about it. Maybe your kids have talked about it. Or maybe your parents have talked about it to you, which I very much encourage. But let's go ahead and play this clip. I'm going to pull this up. This is Elizabeth Warren. She's at a Senate committee hearing, and I just got to tell you, through everything that she's saying, we can tell that she has no clue what's going on. Let's go here to the beginning. I'll let you guys hear this. This one is going to be fun.
You know, some of the fees from last Tuesday, the fee to swap between two crypto tokens on the Ethereum network was more than $500. Obviously, way more than the $100 I was trying to trade in the first place. So the question I have is, in the face of these high, unpredictable fees, small investors could easily get jammed and wiped out entirely. Chair Gensler, advocates say crypto markets are all about financial inclusion.
Hell yeah.
But the people who are most economically vulnerable are the ones who are most likely to have to withdraw their money the fastest when the market drops. Does this sound like the path to financial inclusion to you?
It's a highly speculative asset class. It doesn't sound like the path that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm sure these guys have never spoken about it privately and agreed upon it and probably sat down to write these talking points together. That's the head of the SEC, Gary Gnasser, I believe is his name. Let's keep going.
You know, there are a whole list of problems with crypto: unreliable tech, scams, devastating climate impact. but high unpredictable fees can make crypto trading really dangerous for people who aren't rich. Regulators need to step up to address crypto's regulatory gaps and ensure that we're actually building the inclusive financial system that we need. And Chair Gensler, I expect you and the SEC to take a leading role in getting this done. Thank you.
Clappity clap, clap, clap. That's Senator Elizabeth Warren, a one-time, maybe two-time presidential candidate. I don't remember at this point, but she up there in the Senate, and she wants to make sure she's fighting for the little guy. We remember that during the presidential campaign in 2016. That was her sort of big mantra, her big thing. She's out there for the little guy. Now, if that is her understanding of what cryptocurrencies or the crypto economy is, we're in bigger trouble than I thought, ladies and gentlemen. That is not at all how these things work. What she's talking about with the high fees on the Ethereum network, that's a consequence of too many people using it. And when it comes to the high fees, there are alternatives. There are other blockchains that people are using to trade some of these. You don't even need to understand that necessarily to get the broader point that neither does Senator Warren really understand what's happening here. Not really does she understand the entire crypto economy. She has never seen a free market enterprise or an entrepreneurship venture that she has not wanted to restrict in the name of the little guy. And here's who's being forgotten. It's people like you and me. It's a lot of, younger consumers who love to go out there and use these technologies. They love to be able to transact, to send money around the world, to be able to save money, and to do so in a way that is not controlled by the federal government. It's not controlled by the Federal Reserve. It's not controlled by the Mint. It's not controlled by all of our federal institutions. It's this great innovative new internet currency that's come about. And it's really concerning to Senator Warren. It's really concerning. And she brings up the point about, people who don't have much money, who might be trading. And there's all this focus on this kind of the exchanges and the trading. Most people who are into this are going to be able to acquire it, and then they're going to sit on it and they're going to hold it. They're going to learn more about the technology. They're going to learn more about how to use it. There's all types of new products and services that are coming out around that. But this kind of inkling that Senator Warren has, I fear, is far too often a gesture up there on the Hill in Washington, D.C. It's about holding power to account. That's why you tune into the Big Talker every single week. That's why you try to listen to shows like Joe's here, Mornings with Joe Catenacci. And it's sincerely why we have to be careful about the types of people we send up there. I didn't want to play the clip of our own North Carolina Senator Burr. He is not a big fan either. He's on his way out, as we know. And as far as I understand, he's a bit too busy to understand crypto because he's actually trading stocks on his own based on insider knowledge. If you guys remember that story from back in March. This is the kind of stuff that we're up against, ladies and gentlemen. You and me, those of us who believe that we should have less interference in our government, we should have less interference in our economic affairs. We should not have the elite aspirations of various senators from blue states who face no competitive competition in terms of politics to set the financial rules of the game. I find it's very scary to see that Senator Warren does have so much power. I mean, she's on the Finance Committee. She's on a lot of these rules committees. And it really just goes to show she'd be ready and willing to make all of the U.S.-based crypto services, exchanges, any of the new banks that are coming out, she would love to make them illegal overnight. And she tells you, though, she's doing it for your own good. She's doing it to protect the small investors, don't you see? I see that as a little bit of a danger zone. I've been thinking a lot about smart regulation of cryptocurrency. You guys can head on over to consumerchoicecenter.org, my organization, where we've written about that. We've got a nice policy primer that's coming out next week that we'll be handing out to people up there on the Hill. Make sure they get on the right page. We can't be, left behind. We cannot allow all of the innovation when it comes to the crypto economy. We can't let it take place in Europe or Singapore or Hong Kong. We have to have it in the United States. This is the place that sets the tone for the rest of the world. Our entrepreneurs set the tone. Our services set the tone. If we're going to already lose something that is a $2.1 trillion economy, because of the overzealous politicians like Senator Warren, that is not a good thing. It's not a good thing, and hopefully a lot of people are kind of up to date on how we can change things, how we can actually maybe have an influence up there in D.C. And it depends on who you vote for. It depends on who you're voting for locally as well. That's covered so well on this program and many others. I got to tell you, it's really concerning to see that, because we always talk about financial literacy. If you listen to this station, you hear Dave Ramsey talking about financial literacy every single day for 2 or 3 hours. And it's something that we got to focus on a lot more, because unfortunately our senators, they might get a little too busy. They might start writing bills that maybe you won't understand all of it, but they're going to impact a lot of stuff. They're going to impact a lot of what's happening with blockchains, everything with cryptocurrencies. And, you might not have your direct hand in it right now, but there are great innovations happening that will make your life better today. So that's segment 1 here. Mornings with Joe Catenacci. As I mentioned, Joe is out for the rest of the hour. You have Yaël Ossowski here. You can normally hear me on Consumer Choice Radio, that broadcast tomorrow, Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern, with my co-host, David Clement, where we kind of dissect the California recall election. We talked about a couple of our fellow radio hosts, a couple of debates up there in Canada, a little about inflation. And did you know that we still don't have free trade? Joe Biden has been in office. No tariffs have been repealed. Nothing has been traded. We still have all of the tariffs, all of the bad things that we were told are going to go away. We'll get more into that and other topics here. Mornings with Joe Catenacci, Yaël Ossowski filling in. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
The explosion hit. I lost consciousness. There was another soldier. He was directly under the blast. And when I was doing my check for casualties, that's when I found him. I hadn't had to see anything like that up until that point. And that is the one thing that I see on a regular basis is this kid. He was 19 years old. My name is James Rodriguez. I'm a veteran from Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I support the Compassionate Care Act, Senate Bill 711. One deployment story completely changes a veteran. They don't feel like they have any other options a lot of times, and when they feel like they're alone, they have no reason to go on. The VA had me on 12 different medications, and that's exactly what I used to attempt suicide. Medical cannabis has been able to treat so many different symptoms of my PTSD. Everyone has different symptoms and different ailments. North Carolina as a whole can benefit from medical cannabis.
Termites, mosquitoes, roaches, spiders. The list of insects and pests goes on and on. So how do you keep them all at bay and out of your home? Call the professionals at Bugno Pest Control. That's Mr. Bugno to you, pal. Bugno Pest Control can not only eliminate insects and pests from in and around your home, they also guarantee it. They are fully licensed and insured, family owned and operated for all your pest control needs. Call Bugno Pest Control, 910-367-2501, or visit bugnopestcontrol.com. Rated 5 stars on Angie's List and HomeAdvisor.com.
I'm Rob Renz, Marine Corps veteran, entrepreneur, and local business owner. Join me and my buddies on Monday from 6 to 7 for Signal Fire Radio, where we discuss how to successfully transition from the military and become a signal fire in your community. That's Signal Fire Radio, Mondays from 6 to 7 p.m. on 106.7 The Big Talker.
Folks, we all know ongoing road construction and traffic can weigh heavy on your vehicle. Since 2006, O'Leary's Automotive Repair has provided comprehensive repair services at affordable prices to get you back on the road in no time. Their ASE-certified technicians will help you find a cost-effective repair and maintenance alternatives. O'Leary's has multiple locations in the area in Hampstead, Leland, the Myrtle Grove area, Ogden, and Wrightsboro. O'Leary's Automotive Repair, a trusted, locally owned business since 2006.
And welcome back. Mornings with Joe Catenacci here on the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, broadcasting out of Wilmington, North Carolina. I'm right in downtown, as you guys can see. Coming to you every single weekday from 7 to 10 a.m. here on the Big Talker station. Joe Catenacci is out for the rest of the hour. Yaël Ossowski filling in. Normally you'll hear me at the end of the week, at the end of the hour, but he asked me to fill in for the whole hour, give you guys a little bit of content that you wouldn't otherwise hear. I know Joe's got great stories, and he's been telling them all week. And now he's going to do us proud, go out there and be the great sports announcer that he is. And, part of the part of talk radio that I find most interesting is that, it gives opportunity to people to call in. Obviously, there's a lot of people who call in all week, but also gives an opportunity to analyze the news as soon as it comes in. And you're able to get great perspectives from people who have, their own area expertise. They're able to call in, provide that. Maybe there are some listeners who know a lot about a particular topic, and it's great to call on them. And then if we see something that's happening, something that pops up in the news, we are able to comment on it right away. We're able to say, hey, actually, this is happening right now. What do you think? Maybe we take some calls when we do a little bit of analysis. It's kind of the funnest part that I love about talk radio. And one big reason why I'm still connected to the Big Talker, why I hope to be for a long time, because it's great to be able to break that down. Now let's take a look at kind of what happened this week. I know that Joe covered it a bit. We talked about California Governor Gavin Newsom. So this fella, if you guys don't know, you're not familiar with the California the referendum system that's in the Constitution. It's very special to California. You can't do this in many other states. If they're able to get enough signatures, they're able to hold a recall election, and if people vote to kick the person out, they can immediately vote for a replacement candidate to take that position. It's obviously how we have Arnold Schwarzenegger as a former governor of California once he was able to kick out Gray Davis out there in California. I think this stuff is very fascinating and interesting. And on the ballot this time, we had Gavin Newsom's coronavirus policies, his kind of COVID stance, and also his hypocrisy. And to kind of see the numbers as they were, I believe it was kind of a blowout. I think the last numbers I saw was, it was upwards of around 65 to 70%. We'll give it to Gavin Newsom. It is a highly Democratic state. One analysis I saw said that most people who probably would have voted to kick him out already moved to Texas anyway, or Arizona. So there's that. But, to see that the style of COVID hypocrisy, particularly when it comes to the rules are for thee, not for me, this kind of mentality. Gavin Newsom was caught at the French Laundry restaurant, likely one of the fanciest and most expensive restaurants in the entire country, at a time when California was in total lockdown. He was there hanging out with friends at a birthday party, no masks, perfect hypocritical moment, caught on tape. We had a nice little beautiful picture of that. And it's something that I think, I thought it would have had much more of an impact in California. But if we look at the exit polls that came out, NBC News had a good breakdown. I think more people are really just Democrats, and that they saw no reason to kick him out. I think there are a lot of people who are upset about the lockdowns, about how they affect small businesses and restaurants. That's certainly been the case in North Carolina, but we just did not see that change when it came to poll day. And I think California is a super majority state with a lot of Democrats, and it just wasn't enough. I guess the party partisanship times is really among us. And even when a governor has been very hypocritical, when he's done wrong, people still don't see fit to kick him out, even though they have the power to do so. So a fellow talk show host, actually on this station as well, syndicated, Larry Elder, he was considered the top candidate, and he actually did get around 36% of those who voted to kick out Gavin Newsom. He did get the highest percentage of those votes, but of course, because the first vote did not pass muster, we will not be having a Governor Elder anytime soon. Definitely interesting to have him there. He talked about a lot of interesting economic ideas. Obviously, there's a lot of character assassination when it comes to him. That's unfortunate. It's we need bold thinkers who are in different government buildings government offices, government positions. We need people who think boldly. We need people who are willing to take risks, and we need people who are willing to, speak their mind. And Gavin Newsom, as we know, typically speaks from the absolute most politically correct way that you could ever find. He's got a filter for that, apparently, and apparently could not be defeated. Who knows if that carries on? We'll see. I think it gives us a lot of indications, though, about just the partisan politics around the country. Again, California is kind of a special case. It's its own little island. But that is where a lot of regulations are drafted that a lot of businesses have to follow because it's a huge market. I think it's fifth largest economy in the world, technically, if it was its own country. That means that the rules that are set in California will apply to entrepreneurs in North Carolina, to people who might be in Boone or in Asheville or in Wilmington or New Hanover County. And that's unfortunate. That's something that I think many people have gotten to recognize as kind of a problem with California dominance in our federal union. But we'll keep an eye on that. I think there'll be some more interesting stuff coming out of California because there are a lot of upset people. There have been a lot of protests. There are a lot of people rising up and speaking at some of these board meetings, city council meetings, county board meetings. That stuff is kind of next level. And, I would hope that kind of popular resistance would turn into something, but unfortunately, we haven't seen that. One way that I know that California has probably surpassed many of the other countries, I pulled this as off of Twitter. You can also follow me on Twitter at Yaël Oss, Yael OSS, here co-hosting for Joe on the Big Talker, Mornings with Joe Catenacci. There's a beautiful chart, actually. Healthcare administrators far outpace physicians in growth. There are a lot of people who are involved with healthcare, either as entrepreneurs or as health practitioners. I know a lot of people connected to this station and in the Wilmington area. And the chart just kind of shows the number of doctors, a pretty flat line, and the number of administrators shooting up to the moon. And what's interesting about this chart here, and I'll try to link to that here in the video if I can, it shows at certain points when various federal regulations were passed. So things like the prospective payment system, things like HIPAA, the HITECH Act, things that were passed by Congress that changed the way that basically hospitals and healthcare systems had to run. And we talk about healthcare, we talk about the cost of healthcare, we talk about healthcare insurance. There's a lot of problematic aspects with what's happening when it comes to our doctor's visits, when it comes to prescriptions. There's a lot of problems there. There's a lot of cronyism. There's a lot of rent seeking. There's a lot of people who are having to pay way more depending on what kind of insurance they have or if they have insurance at all. But a chart like this showing growth of healthcare administrators and administrative growth going up exponentially to the roof and physician growth essentially flatlined shows you that we got a bigger problem than just, who's paying the insurance. It has a lot to do with how bureaucratic our hospital administrations are. And I know Joe has covered that specifically in New Hanover County. There's been a lot of debate about the healthcare system and the local hospital and who should be running this and which. And there's a lot of rules as well, regulations that limit the amount of hospitals to begin with. We have something called the Certificate of Need laws. They're also present here in North Carolina. And the idea is that before there is a new hospital or a new healthcare facility, a sort of new entrepreneur or new company that would like to do that has to get permission to show that there is a need in the community. Because you can't have too many hospitals, they say. And the legislators have fixed a system with these Certificate of Need laws to make it so that we don't have too many hospitals. Of course, the intention is to make sure that we're not oversaturated with hospitals, there's not too much money being spent. But realistically, what it means is that if you're the large local hospital, you essentially have a monopoly and you're able to keep out your competitors. I mean, what entrepreneur would not love to do this? What entrepreneur would not love to lock out all of their potential competitors? Oh, Walmart says, we got a Target coming to town. We can't have that. We've got enough here. We're covered. I mean, that's essentially what's happening with a lot of our healthcare facilities and hospitals. And this adds to a lot of the administrative growth that adds to the cost. I really hope more people start talking about this. You know, it's not always a problem centrally just on politics. A lot of it has to do with basically the negative impact of policy. This chart, as I mentioned, shows the different years in which different legislative proposals were passed. And with every single new bill that Congress passes, every new obligation, hospitals, healthcare professionals, they got to go out and they got to hire more people. They have to hire administrators. They have to hire compliance teams. They have to try to hire some of the big four accounting firms to make sure they're dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And in the end, that means that you as a patient are going to have to pay more. You as a consumer are going to have to pay more. And it's another recognition here of you might have very good intentions when you're in government, when you're writing a law, when you're someone like Senator Elizabeth Warren, you know, you're doing it for the little people. But the more laws that we passed, specifically in a centralized place such as Washington, D.C., the more that it impacts you, the more that it impacts all of the incentives around providing goods and services, the more that we have rent seekers, and the more that we're really going to have a system that's set up not to help those who most need it, but those who are politically connected, those who have the resources, those who can lobby. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a large club, and you and me, we ain't in it. So I'll be right back here on the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, Mornings with Joe Catenacci. Joe is out for the rest of the hour. Yaël Ossowski filling in. We got much more to come here, 2 more segments. We'll be with you for the rest of the morning. It's a Freedom Friday here on Big Talker. Stay tuned to the radio. We'll be right back after this.
I just didn't want to feel any pain anymore. I mean, I'm literally like drunk, dug my own grave, and then like, who the heck's gonna bury me? You know, I'm gonna be in this grave and dead, and they're gonna find me. So that's not what I wanted. I just wanted to disappear and, you know, get by without having to be depressed. My name is Samuel Roberts. I'm a veteran and I'm an advocate for medicinal cannabis. In my first semester of my second attempt at college, I was struggling quite a bit. One day I'm in the Veteran Center at Cape Fear Community College and I was having a bad day. And a Marine Corps veteran walked up to me and he said, "Hey Sam, how you doing?" And just gave him the same line I always give everybody. "Oh, I'm fine. You know, what's up?" And he goes, "Well, you don't look fine." And we got to talking about it a little bit more, and he asked me, he goes, "Well, have you ever tried this?" And he was referring to medicinal cannabis. I had tried the meds, I had done the antidepressants, I had the therapy, I had gone to 2 hospitals, I was in behavioral health units, begging for help in all the legal ways. This was the only thing that I had to do which would break the rules, but could help me. Speaking from the veteran community, we're losing 22 veterans every day to suicide. We need every weapon, every tool at our disposal to stop this.
And welcome back here, Mornings with Joe Catenacci on the Big Talker, 106.7 FM. We're broadcasting right from downtown Wilmington. As you can see behind me, if you're listening on or watching on the Facebook stream or on YouTube, it's a beautiful Friday, Freedom Friday morning here on the Big Talker. I'm one of your hosts here, Yaël Ossowski, on the Big Talker Network. Normally you hear me Saturdays at 10, and you'll hear me around this hour. This is normally my segment with Joe. On Friday, I'm from the Consumer Choice Center. I'm deputy director there, and I'm filling in for Joe while he's out doing his broadcast duties. He's a man of sports, a man of politics, a man of radio, and he's doing us proud out there on the road. So, Joe, hope you're doing well and keeping it up. We talked about a couple of things throughout the hour. Obviously, it's a very busy week. We had everything happening in California, all types of COVID news. We had AOC wearing the dress. I know people talked a lot about that, a good amount. We had stories about one of the generals during the Trump administration kind of back-channeling with the Chinese. Let's actually get this guy's name. I totally forget what this guy's name is. China General back-channeling. This was, I think it was in a book by Bob Woodward. So he is the sort of he's pretty old at this point. But Bob Woodward is sort of he's very known for talking to Deep Throat there in the sort of Nixon scandal, Watergate. And he was able to get a lot of the corruption out back in the days, and I think we've had even a bunch of journalists today. We can talk a little bit about journalism in a bit. But Woodward's book mentions General Mark Milley and whether or not he went rogue at the end of the Trump administration. Apparently he had been actually much like House of Cards. If you guys have seen House of Cards, I think it's season 3, he was back-channeling with the Chinese. That's exactly what he was doing. Actually speaking to his counterpart there in the People's Liberation Army, the People's Army over there in communist China. And Milley had apparently told his kind of counterpart there, General Li Zuochang, in October 2020 and in January, that there would be no U.S. attack on China, that everything is fine, and that if anything were to happen, in terms of foreign affairs, he would call up this Chinese general and make sure everything was good. There's been a lot of comment on that, obviously, all week. You've kind of heard that. Is this a general who's rogue, who's just kind of going next level to make sure that Trump doesn't get his way, particularly when it comes to foreign policy? Is it someone who's actually trying to stand up for the military institution? You don't know at this point. We haven't really gotten any comment. Obviously, he's still employed, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is a big deal. This is not a nobody. This is not the guy who shuffles mail between various offices. I mean, this is one of the highly decorated generals in the United States. And to think that he was actually disregarding a president's orders and going around a president's back, I mean, it doesn't look good. And I think Joe Biden, if he wants to make an example and kind of show essentially that we have civilian control of the military in the United States for a reason, is to avoid this, is to avoid military coups, to avoid military espionage, to avoid the deep state, if you can say that. And if it's still true that he's still there, General Mark Milley, that's fairly problematic. We can imagine, we even had, back in the beginning of the Trump administration, we just had a couple of people in the administration just talking to some of their Russian counterparts and essentially getting arrested. So you have somebody here who's actually a general back-channeling with the Chinese, telling them what the plan will be and giving them assurances without then President Trump knowing. Yeah, that's a bit problematic to me. I'm not a partisan person. I don't favor one party over another, but that's the kind of stuff that really is about institutions, and it's about the republic, and it's about how much control that civilians and the republic has over things like the military. So that kind of stuff is, a bit problematic. Hopefully there'll be a lot more reporting on that. There's a lot of problems with reporting in this country, as you guys know. Bias. Bias is a thing that impacts a lot of our media today. And you see it with the recent story on ivermectin by the renowned and astute Rolling Stone magazine. I'm sure you guys read a little bit about this. We see that, just the way that general press treat not only President Biden, but also looking at North Carolina, our own Roy Cooper, just sort of how he's treated. You can count maybe one or two adversarial journalists. When we get back to the Trump era, obviously it was essentially everyone in that room. That was kind of how it worked back in the day during the Trump administration, and we're kind of in a different reality now, because with journalism, the thing to understand is that, as I mentioned before, these leaks came, Bob Woodward, and so many journalists today I mean, particularly, it was more true during the Trump era. They were trying to channel that, Woodward and Bernstein sort of, journalistic pursuit is like, we're going to hold power to account. That was the big thing during the Trump administration. So that's why people were very willing to, do a very performative job when they were at the White House press conference. They were very happy to do more performative and enthusiastic reports whenever they'd be reporting on stuff that's happening at the federal level. And it's just a bit rich that now, all these months later, we just don't have that. And we know the sort of statistics on the amount of time that Biden has given in interviews to journalists versus Trump. I mean, I think Trump has given like 6 times more interviews by this point in his presidency. And it's, for this kind of stuff, the journalists have lost a lot of credibility. There's a lot of them who are great, by the way. There's a lot of great reporters, journalists, a lot of them that I respect. There's a few that I give money to on Patreon even. There's people that I read every day. There are people who are my must-follows, people who are in my RSS feeds or they're in my Facebook feeds or anything else. But just, the collective, the journalistic collective, really has been letting people down. And I think there's a point made by Matt Taibbi, who's a former Rolling Stone reporter, though, he was a good ilk. He's now out on his own. He's got his own Substack and everything. But he always made the point that, today's journalistic class is not made up of who it used to be. It used to be very much a working class profession. It's people who came from the steel mills, people who come from union families. Everyone usually was middle income, lower income. Now a lot of these journalists are people who are graduating from Columbia School of Journalism. They come from mostly elite families. They're either from California or New York or grew up incredibly wealthy. So whenever things are important to them, then it's highlighted in the reporting. When there's something that's going to impact their lives, oh, goodness me, that's going to be the front page. That's going to be the big news clip of the day. It's going to be the thing that everyone kind of focuses on. But, we don't necessarily have that kind of class perspective in journalism that we used to have many years ago. Matt Taibbi's good on that. He's actually written a couple books, too, that I would definitely recommend for people who are interested in that and much more. You guys are listening to the Big Talker, 106.7 FM, Mornings with Joe Catenacci. I've been hanging on for Joe here the last hour of the program. It's a Freedom Friday. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. Hope you guys get to enjoy it. Go and pop a hard seltzer, or maybe get your kids around the table, start telling jokes, have some fun out there. Looking at the news again, there's a huge amount of stuff related to the military and what was happening with Trump and Biden. There's some news on North Korea. There's a really right now what we're seeing is a lot of consternation about the trillions of dollars of spending that are happening in Washington, D.C. And, with this level of spending, with this level really that we've seen in the last 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, does anything surprise us anymore? Do people even know what $1 trillion is anymore? I sincerely don't. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how many numbers there are in $1 trillion. I could, in most languages, actually, they don't even have a number for trillion. They have had to invent it recently because of hyperinflation or because, governments are spending a lot of money. You're having this entire change in language because we're spending so much money. In French, we don't even have the term. We have to use the term billion to say trillions. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that is changing the way that basically how our societies are now structured. It has to do with the amount of money that is being printed up by governments, that is being spent by governments, and it is kind of insane. I know there's going to be much more to come in probably, I think, in about a month. We're having more of the budget deal, and I believe the debt ceiling limitation was going to be there. And once the debt ceiling gets hit, as we know, that's when we start talking about defaulting on our debt and our loans. And we have to have another emergency crisis that everybody's ready for, another emergency in D.C., another thing that we all got to get upset about, a fiscal cliff. We got to have protests, and absolutely nothing is going to change. I hope people are learning from at least the last year that if we do let government go a bit wild, it will. And if we let government basically without any criticism, without any opposition, try to put together policies and call it science, yes, that's going to cause some harm in many communities. So that's a theme to keep in mind for the rest of the day and for the weekend. Don't think about politics too much, but try to enjoy it out there. I know there's going to be some great sports out on the TVs. We're getting towards the end of the NASCAR season. Playoffs are heating up. We've got football back on the TV again. Sports are at it. And sports is where Joe is right now. We're filling in for him. Yaël Ossowski here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Stay tuned for our last segment.
My name is Ginny Morse, and I live in Cary, North Carolina. I was diagnosed in 1985 with multiple sclerosis. One of the things that happens to you is the neuropathy pain. And that is actually what happens is damage from MS. I had tried 4 or 5 drugs to alleviate these issues, and I had to take doses that were so high I couldn't get out of bed. So that's when I tried the medical cannabis and discovered that it stopped it. I will turn 69 in October of this year, and I have lived with MS for 36 years. I've had cancer, blood cancer, which is not curable and is progressive since 2017. So when public officials tell me that I need to wait, I need to be more patient, I need to be more understanding, I'm running out of time. Let's think about the people that aren't going to survive, that are going to continue to suffer in ways that could be alleviated by the passage of Senate Bill 711.
This news and weather is brought to you by 2 Men and a Truck. For your free quote, go to 2menandatruck.com. 2menandatruck.com.
Mornings with Joe Catenacci here on the Big Talker 106.7 FM. Broadcasting in Wilmington. You'll see that I'm right in downtown if you're watching our video stream on Facebook or YouTube. Thank you guys so much for being here, for being active, for commenting if you are there, or if you're on the radio listening, if you're in the car, if you're at home, if you're at work. We're almost there, folks. Friday's almost up. It's got to feel good. It's got to feel good. And since we're in the last segment here, I wanted to go to a nice pop culture story. It's going to have a bit of COVID. I got to warn you. It's going to have a little bit of COVID. But it's going to have a little bit of pop culture. It's going to have a little bit of skepticism. It's going to have a little bit of, Biden slips in there a little bit of Instagram, a little bit of Twitter. Let's have some fun here. So this is about Nicki Minaj. Now, I am not a huge, music connoisseur. I don't necessarily listen to Nicki Minaj's music or many other artists. But this is a pop culture story. It's a coronavirus story. It's a political story. Let's go to the article here. Reading this from Reason. Nicki Minaj's vaccine hesitancy tweets show value of persuasion over federal mandates. Now, if you don't know the context of this, what's happening here is that Nicki Minaj put out some kind of tweet saying that her cousin was in Trinidad and had a case of swollen testicles from the vaccine and all, and essentially that's why she said to be hesitant about it and to do your own research. I'm quoting here, so the World Health Organization can't cancel me. From that started the firestorm of cultural criticism. A lot of people dunking on her. all kinds of things. She even put out a couple of videos on Instagram saying, like, what, are we not allowed to question anything anymore? Is that what's happening? And, in this, you have not just Nicki Minaj, throwing shade on COVID vaccines, but then you have the White House getting involved. You have media figures getting involved. And what happens is, you have the White House actually reached out to Madame Minaj. And, basically they said, hey, we can hook you up with a doctor. We'll tell you everything you need to know about the vaccine. There's no reason to be skeptical. You can talk to us. You can talk to our people, and we'll have that figured out for you. So why is that interesting? It goes to show that perhaps we don't need to have large federal mandates on vaccines. Perhaps we don't need to have the force of the federal government or through our employers or through different, bureaucratic agencies wanting to clamp down on both private businesses and public institutions, either telling them that all employees have to get a vaccine or they need to be testing 87 times a week. You can actually do it with persuasion. You don't have to use government force. You don't have to use government regulation. And that's actually something to celebrate. And it's a perfect example. And, this is the kind of stuff that I love to see happen, is that people are very much in favor of mandates. And we have to realize that mandates, particularly when they come from government, require that there be some enforcement mechanism. What's the enforcement mechanism? And in many cases, that's using fines, it's using police officers, pulling them from what they're normally doing to actually go and serve whatever this particular law might be, this enforcement that they have to do. It means that you're going to have to turn up pressure and use force. And when you're using force, when you're doing the mandate, we're kind of abandoning open conversation, civil conversation, debate, expert advice. It just comes down to political might, political power, and to the big hammer coming down. I know that Joe has talked a lot about this. Anyone who's gotten COVID in the past and has recovered, according to many of the studies, have incredibly strong antibodies, probably stronger than many of us who do have the vaccines. But to see that, there's only this mandate, that's the last sort of step that we got to do. I think this Nicki Minaj story really just kind of emphasizes how that doesn't need to be the case, and that you can actually talk to people, you can convince them. We have to stop treating everyone like the American people, the American public, is just dumb, is idiotic, is not smart enough to understand the intricacies of X and Y. Oh, they understand it. They might not agree with you. They probably don't think the same. They probably don't have the same frame of reference, particularly as media or political elites. But families think about this stuff. Families have political arguments and debates and thoughts. Perhaps that doesn't line up with many coastal elites and sort of what they're favorable towards, but what are you supposed to do about that? So the Nicki Minaj story, a little bit of fun here on the end of Friday. The clock is ticking, folks. It's getting towards the end, but I hope all of you are enjoying listening to the Big Talker 106.7 FM. Yaël Ossowski filling in for Joe Catenacci. He's out on the road. He's trying to do the best he can to be the sports broadcaster of the year. We love him. We want him to continue going. And he'll be back next week, Monday to Friday, 7 to 10 a.m. Stay tuned to the Big Talker dial. You'll be able to hear from him then. I guess we'll check out the last headlines of the week. There was this investigation over at Facebook. This is a Wall Street Journal investigation. This has to do with apparently some documents that had been released or leaked to some of the reporters over there at the Wall Street Journal, and it gives a lot of detail as to the internal process of Facebook, of the moderation, of different employees, of the policies. It's very, very deep. There's a lot of stuff to read. There's going to be a whole series of articles on it. So if you are interested, really would recommend you head on over to the Wall Street Journal, check that out. I'm sure it'll be reproduced somewhere if you don't have a subscription or anything. But there's an interesting part about the so-called cross-check. or whitelist. And this whitelist apparently made it so that you had particular VIP accounts on the platform. Probably not mine, probably not the Big Talkers, but you have these elite accounts that basically were whitelisted. And for no reason at all would they have their videos removed. If there were any takedown requests or spam requests or some kind of misinformation requests, they would be allowed to pass. And then the question is, how did these particular pages get onto this whitelist? How did some people get on there who happen to be from this political persuasion or then from another political persuasion? All you need to know is that with a lot of the Silicon Valley companies, this is the kind of the problem. It's not that Facebook itself is a company that does not like conservatives or Republicans. It's that it is a Silicon Valley company that happens to be staffed on the policy and communication side. That's important. By people who are from Silicon Valley, which, if we remember the first part of the hour, California recall election, Gavin Newsom is overwhelmingly Democrat. So it's natural. This is the milieu of the people who work there, and they're going to set the policies according to the standards of what they see in their backyards, about what their neighbors are talking about, the political opinions they agree with. Obviously, they're trying to be neutral in many ways, and it's a yeoman's job. It's a hard task. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. But it's sort of a woke factor, a woke segment within the company, and that's something that's basically every company now. Every Fortune 500 company is kind of suffering from this. We'll see what happens with these files. I hope it doesn't lead to more of these ridiculous investigations with, Elizabeth Warren telling us how social networking works and how to add friends and all of this. I do not need another technological computer lesson from a 70-year-old senator who likely has never touched any of these and just has their staff members or grandkids do it for them. I'm glad we came right back around. This is the beginning of the show. We were talking about crypto regulation, cryptocurrencies, and Senator Warren and her comments that she made to the chair of the Securities and Exchange Commission. We come around, ladies and gentlemen. We always have to be skeptical. I think that's the big lesson that at least I've been trying to trumpet for many years. It's something that every news story that I see, every article that I read, every piece of skeptical information that I receive, that's the one mantra that I continue having. Continue to be skeptical, questioning, always having, a critical eye, because there are a lot of different things that are framed by certain people, and that's why it's good to have radio, it's good to have podcasts, it's good to have television programs. It's good to have more and more information. It's great to have social media networks, by the way, because then we're able to share those ideas. We're able to connect with people like we never have, and that gives us such a richer life than we could ever see. So I'm actually very grateful for technology. I seem to be the resident Big Talker host who's all in on all the technology. But I do love it. It's connecting so many people. It's providing great value for small businesses, for individuals, for consumers, for families. I'm going to continue to trumpet it. And you'll hear more of that probably tomorrow on Consumer Choice Radio. Join me and my colleague David Clement. We're there every single Saturday at 10 a.m. That does it for us here on Freedom Friday, Mornings with Joe Catenacci. I'm Yaël Ossowski signing off. You guys enjoy your weekend. And Joe will be back next week.